Hi everybody, welcome back to another EcoVenture GSO. I'm Mikey.
And I'm Crystal.
Yes, you are. It's been a little bit of a while, but we are glad to be back and happy to see you again. Today we are going to be talking about rescue and rehab stuff concerning animals. We're going to talk to some wildlife officers, we're going to have some fun with the animals, and we're going to kind of bounce around to different locations to have a little bit of fun, get some information out. So I'd say don't touch that dial, but I don't know if you guys have dials anymore. So anyway, welcome back to EcoVenture GSO, and time for another adventure. All right, everybody, so for our very first segment, we're gonna talk about a couple of really cool animal species that people will regularly get when they're small and cute, adorable, and easy to take care of when they're young. But as these animals get bigger, they become aggressive, very messy, very large, that kind of thing. And then people don't know what to do with them. They don't know if they should let them go in the habitat that's not theirs, give them to a zoo or what. So we'll talk about a couple of animals that you probably don't want as pets, but then a lot of people still get them. Whenever you're getting an animal, you always want to do your research before you get something.
Absolutely.
So we'll start the first one off with something small and cute and adorable. We'll work up to some of the other stuff. So this is Reggie, everybody. Hi, buddy boy.
Small and cute and adorable.
Yes, he's still growing. So he's still small and cute.
He certainly is.
So everybody, Reggie is a Burmese python. They are a very cool species. Now Reggie's about 10 feet long. He can grow larger. Boys can get up on average about 13 or a little bit more feet. The females get 16 to 20. These guys are really, really cool snakes. A lot of people buy them when they're babies and they're easy to take care of and they're cute, but they can grow a couple of feet a year and get pretty big pretty fast, and then it's a lot harder to find them food and house them. Plus, many states now have regulations on these guys because in more southern states, down in Georgia, but most importantly Florida, people would get them and then release them when they couldn't handle them, and now they live as an invasive species in Florida and they're eating all the wildlife. So Burmese pythons are very, very cool and I absolutely love them, but most people really want to think about having a snake this big in their home, and properly caring for it. So this might be a snake that you need to avoid since they need such a large enclosure, a lot of food. They're not herbivores, okay? So unless you have like a cat, you don't know. Just kidding. But basically, they are meat eaters, need a big enclosure and a lot of heat. So something to think about. So we're gonna go on to our next species now, and we're gonna kind of go through a few different animals. So you guys ready for the next one?
So this is Marlena, and she is a giant Flemish rabbit, and she's so sweet and so soft, but she does eat a lot. And of course, she poops a lot.
And she looks like she sheds a lot.
She does shed a lot. So you're gonna have to brush her a lot and keep her little nails trimmed. And these guys are gonna live about 10 years, and they require a lot of care. Also, even if you get a small bunny, all bunnies can overheat, and so it's super important to keep them cool. And they are really fun and great pets, but they are not for everyone. I'm not sure I could have a 20-pound beast in my house.
Right there, looks like a lot of fur and
It's
poo.
a lot of fur, and I actually am a little bit allergic, and sometimes it just depends on the to the rabbit and the chinchilla fur, and so and it just varies sometimes on which animals I am allergic to. So you have to kind of check that out when you're researching your animals.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because sometimes some dogs are hypoallergenic and some things like that, and you don't even know you're allergic until you pet one and you break out in hives.
I actually got her from a young lady who turned out that her child was allergic to the bunny and she couldn't keep her. So that's where she came from. So yeah, understood. So definitely something you want to think about.
Anything else you want to add, Michael, before we go on to our next animal?
It's just really, really hard. Some of these animals are the cutest things ever, and you just want to hold and hug and bring them home. But just remember, aside from that, there's a lot more that goes with all these guys. So Yeah.
meet you.
Yep.
Thank you, Marlena.
Yeah, sure thing. You ready for the next one?
I sure am.
Excellent, very cool. All right, everybody, so our next one, we're gonna talk about monitor lizards, which I love, but I'm also a little off. To be exact, this is an Asian water monitor, which is the third largest lizard species in the world. A big one can get 8 feet long, so he's not quite there yet, but he's sure trying. These guys are really cool. There's a lot of different monitor species that you can buy as a pet, and some of them are little tiny ones, some of them get the most common usually are between 4 feet and 8 feet long, depending on which species you get. They're all carnivorous, so they're all meat eaters. They are a little on the stinky side because they eat whole rodents and birds, you know, that kind of stuff. So when they use the restroom, it's a room clearer. These guys are very cool and interesting, but they can be a bit aggressive. You need to do a lot of work with them to calm them down and make them docile. This guy here is not really aggressive as a biter, but if you see I've got my heavy gloves on, because even trimmed down, those claws are lethal. They're made for ripping food apart and climbing trees and that kind of stuff. So even when it's just trying to be squirmy, he would tear my arms and my wrists apart. And if I could not bleed on the job and have to fill out paperwork, it's a good day. But they're really, really neat, but you have to basically build them an enclosure when they get larger.
About how long or how often do you have to handle them every day or every week? How often do you have to handle them to kind of get them a little used to you? Because
I try to handle them every day for 20 minutes to an hour.
Okay. So
it's a fair amount of time that you're going to incorporate. You know, and some species tame down better than others. A lot of the ones I get are adoptions and they haven't been worked with as much, so it's a little bit more work, you know? This guy's coming along pretty well. He's really good, but he is still very nervous. But this guy will eventually need an enclosure the size of a room.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because he's going to be a very big lizard, and if you keep them in a small tank, they can stunt their growth. That messes up the growth of their internal organs. They can get bone issues. They don't live as long. These guys are all reptiles and all animals need the proper setup. Reptiles especially need the proper vitamins, the certain lighting to give them, you know, be able to metabolize vitamin D, all of that. And if you deny them that or don't give them the proper setup, they'll have a short lifespan, lots of health issues. So it's a very big undertaking to raise something from a 6-inch hatchling to an 8-foot giant carnivorous lizard, which, you know, giant carnivorous lizards are cool, but they're probably better in a zoo, you know? Unless you have multiple children and you are only attached to some of them, so it's okay. Kidding, do not do that. Disclaimer, I take no responsibility for whatever you do at home with that. So anyway, monitor lizards are great, but you probably want to really double think about it before you get one. All right, everybody. Here's another species you really, really want to think about. A lot of people love birds because they're cool, they're bright, they're interactive, but certain species of parrots and whatnot are a lot more trouble than you think. Everybody meet Cookie. Cookie is very cool. He's what's called an Amazon parrot. Here, hold that. I'm talking, so I have to have the volume right now. So Cookie's an Amazon parrot. He's very cool, he's very neat. He is so much maintenance, it's not even funny. So, Crystal, do you know how mentally old Cookie is?
Well, he's about 4.
He's about 4. So Cookie, in actuality, is about 33 years old, but mentally, he has the same facilities and emotional stability as a 4-year-old child, which is kind of cool, but you gotta remember, Cookie will live for 80 to 100 years. So it's like having a 4-year-old child who screams a lot and has a somewhat touchy temper for a century. So they're really neat, but they live a long, long time, and you have to keep them constantly occupied. This is not a cage-only animal. This is just his transport cage, of course. He has a much, much bigger enclosure and his permanent home. And they do have a bit of an attitude. They pick certain people they like and certain people they don't. For some reason, I don't know why, but Cookie has a problem with Crystal. Cookie doesn't really like Crystal. If she tries to pet him, he'll probably bite her.
I've never tried try to pet him.
No? Do you want to try to pet him so that people can see you get bitten?
No.
No? Okay, just checking. So, anyway, guys, they're very, very messy, and you have to constantly give them lots of things to do, interact with them. They can't just be left alone in a cage. They actually have been studied, they can go insane. Since they're so intelligent and so emotionally with it, you have to interact, you have to make them a family member. And they live a very long time, and they have all different personalities.
Yep, and they also poop a lot.
They poop every 20 minutes.
Yes.
They have a very fast metabolism, so they poop every 20 minutes. Depending on your bird, sometimes they will actually squirt it out of the cage onto the floor.
A lot of cleanup.
They usually need a high quality diet, and you've got to basically do a lot of maintenance with them to kind of keep them going. So parrots are great, but you just got to remember, you're going to have it for many, 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 many years, depending on the species, possibly up to a century, depending on some of the bigger parrots.
It's a long time.
They're really neat, but just definitely something you want to think about. You want to pass it down to somebody. I've had Cookie for a little over 20 years, and I know he's going to outlive me, no problem. He's only 33, and I'm Italian, so I'm going to go a lot faster than he is. So with Cookie, I'm going to leave him to somebody who I probably don't like, just to get them. But either way, guys, parrots are really cool, but definitely it's going to be a lifelong undertaking that you've got to think about. All right, guys, so for this part of the show, we are here with North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission Officer Christopher Blankenship. Thanks for coming out and hanging out with us for a little bit this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. So we are gonna have a couple of wildlife like rescue rehab questions that wanted to bring a professional in to answer for us. Feel good with that?
Absolutely.
I will try not to do anything too crazy for you. All right. I'm gonna cheat, by the way, so
okay.
It's cool. So when we're talking about the wild species around here with people everywhere, are any wild species becoming a problem with like habitat encroachment by people, encounters because of people being outside recreating more, that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely, especially in these urbanized counties like Guilford County, like we're at here. There's a lot of problems with people, just interacting with species such as coyotes, deer, foxes, and geese, especially at parks and residential geese.
Right, absolutely. And what's your basic advice? Just kind of leave them alone? Should we try to pet them? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. So it's always best to coexist with these animals, because they were more than likely here before we were.
Right.
So we're kind of coming in on their habitat. So it's best for us to leave them as wild animals and just enjoy them from a distance.
Beautiful. I love it. All right. So sometimes people will, I know I get calls, I know you get calls. So if somebody encounters like injured wildlife, what should somebody do when that happens? What should they, should they pick it up? Should they hug it? Should they call someone?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I want to mention is that injured wildlife, they're oftentimes going to be more aggressive than just regular wildlife because they're injured, they're scared, and then a human coming up to them is really going to set their alarms off. So it's always best to observe them from a distance.
Okay.
So there's a few different options that you can do in the public when you see, perceived orphaned or injured wildlife animals. So you can go to our website at ncwildlife.org. You can go to the Learning tab, and then you'll have a wildlife problem tab. And from there, it'll pull up a list of rehabilitators in your area. It'll be an interactive map that you can look at.
Okay.
And again, that's just ncwildlife.org. You can call our wildlife helpline, and they're biologists that work from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And then we also have our enforcement line that's there 24/7 if you have questions after hours or on the weekends.
So I know with a lot of wildlife, some people think, they find it and they think it might be abandoned and needing help, but that's not always the case depending on what species it is. How do people know, or are there certain species that if they're abandoned or need help, or that's what they're just doing their natural thing? Right,
yeah, so this comes up a lot with fawn deer. So a lot of times the mother deer will leave them in high grass. They can leave them beside trees, besides bushes, near your home. And this is really normal. So a lot of mother deer, and with other species, the moms will leave the fawns or the young wildlife behind, and that helps them, it keeps them away from the predators that could keep them or get them during the day.
Sure.
So it helps with that. and also just so the mom can go out safely and forage for food and you know, reproduce for milk and everything.
Okay, that's great. And I know like fawn deer especially, they've that dappled kind of coat, so they blend right in, so it's a lot harder for predators and whatnot to see them. So they're made to just lay there and wait for mom to come back and take care of them.
That's exactly right. And so our advice, you know, from the commission is if you see something that you may think is orphaned, just keep an eye on it. Chances are that if it's a deer, you know, that mama deer might come back that night because they are nocturnal, so they'll be moving around a lot at night. So just keep an eye on it from a distance. It's best not to give it any food or water, and especially milk, because you know, milk from a cow can mess up their digestive tract. So
I know some people like that too. You know, yeah.
Yeah, so you always want to check with a wildlife rehabilitator before you touch or go up to a wild animal like that.
Okay, great. No, that's beautiful. So, and I know that, no, that's great. Thank you so much. So moving a little past that, I know a lot of people who have found animals and they've brought them home to help them rehab them, even if they're not rehabbers, you know. What's the legality in bringing an animal home with you?
So most species in North Carolina, it's illegal to possess.
Okay.
So if you find an animal that is injured or orphaned, it's always best to contact the commission, whether it's a wildlife enforcement officer or if you contact a representative that's a rehabilitator to check on that.
Okay, great. So just going to take off this because I know you've had the stories, I've had the stories, people always tell me, how good an idea is it to have wildlife as a pet?
Right, so you know, oftentimes we see wildlife and it looks really cool and they're beautiful animals, and you know, you want to bring it home and enjoy it, but it's not good for the animal. It's best to keep wildlife wild,
right,
and just enjoy it from a distance. Take pictures, videos, so other people can enjoy it too.
That's great, I completely agree. Are there any, you know, when you're cutting down trees, mowing the lawn, how to avoid injuring possible wildlife that might live in your area?
Yeah, absolutely. So just number one, just be mindful of your surroundings, be observant.
Okay.
You know, if it's tall grass, look in the grass to see if there's, you know, a bird could have fell out of the tree. There could be, you know, other types of animals in the tree if you're cutting it down. So look up, look for nests. You can also go to our website, ncwildlife.org, and there's different species profiles.
Okay.
So you can look at different habitat types and see if you're going to be intruding on any type of habitats for certain types of animals. Beautiful.
Great. Okay. Are there any other thoughts on the wildlife rehab, rescue that you want to throw in that I might have missed asking about?
Sure. So again, just coexist with wildlife, enjoy it from a distance, and keep wildlife wild. And it's best not to feed animals, wild animals. Just as an example with wild geese, which is something very prominent here in Guilford County.
Don't look behind you.
When you feed them bread, crackers, it leads to malnutrition, especially if they're young, and it'll lead to deformities in the wings, and they won't ever be able to fly as adult geese.
Right.
And that's just one example. So it's best to again just observe them from a distance and let them be wild.
Gotta love the coexisting. You know, enjoy them, but we all live together in harmony.
Yes, sir.
Love it. Thank you so much for coming out, answering our questions. Really appreciate you. I have one more kind of off-topic question, if that's all right with you.
Yes, sir.
It's a professional question. As a professional wildlife officer, what do you think the chances are that Sasquatch exist and live in North Carolina?
I can't really go on the record and say.
Sorry, I couldn't help it. Thank you so much for everything you do for us, for the state, and thanks for coming and talking with us and everybody at home and all the great information. So looking forward to working with you, and thank you for everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no worries. All right, everybody, so for this segment, we're going to be talking about some native wildlife that you may see while you're hiking, in your yard, that kind of stuff, and why it's a good idea to enjoy it in nature, but leave it alone. So, Crystal, do you want to talk about your buddy there?
Yeah, this is my buddy Frank. He is a box turtle. I really like box turtles. They're super cool. They can close themselves up in their shell. They have a little hinged shell. Frank's not digging me holding him up like this, but here's the hinge right here. And so he can actually shut himself all the way up in his shell. So a lot of times when you see these guys, you just see them all the way in their shell. If they're walking around and they see you, they'll probably close themselves up in their shell because they're pretty, well, not Frank, but in the wild, they're pretty afraid of humans.
So he is super, super cute, so that would mean I can take him home as a pet, right?
Right, no. Well, I mean, you can take him home as a pet, but we shouldn't take these guys home as a pet, and there's several reasons. One of the reasons is we are doing some research to see that we have a lot less box turtles than we used to. It's kind of hard to track them because they are wild. And I know at the Science Center they've been doing research to see if we have how many less we have, and if they're going to go on any kind of list and endangered, or where they are on the list of species that are disappearing. And part of the reason they're disappearing is because people are taking them home, and also even if you pick them up and you think you're helping them from where they are, and you move them too far, they're always going to try to get back to where they are from. And so they're going to be crossing streets if you take them across streets, multiple streets, that is.
Right.
So they're always going to be trying to make their way back, and when you take them a little far from their home, that's their sense of purpose is to get back home, and so they get run over, and
it's not a good thing. They need to stay in their habitat.
Absolutely.
Because they'll live in the same area their entire life, and they know where all their dens are, the food sources, all that kind of stuff, so they need to stay there. So just because something's really cute and might make a good pet for a little while doesn't really, you want to leave it in the woods, or wherever you find it. On the other side of things, guys, a lot of people, aside from trying to take things home as pets because it's cute, they might kill animals because they're afraid of them or don't understand them properly. While all has a place in the whole the food chain and whatnot. So this is Chuck, everybody. Chuck is an eastern king snake. Now I know a lot of people are a little touchy about snakes and think they're evil and don't like them and think they're gonna hurt them. Chuck is one of the most beneficial snakes. Even for people who don't like snakes, you guys wanna have Chuck around. Because not only will he eat the pests around your house like rats and mice, but Chuck's a king snake, which this particular family of snakes, one of their main food sources, one of their favorites, is other snakes.
Well, sure.
They'll eat other snakes, including venomous snakes. So in this area, we have copperheads. They are pretty resilient to the venom, so a copperhead could bite them, they're like, shmeh, and they're gonna keep going and gulp the copperhead. So if you have a king snake around your place, you will not have copperheads. Plus, you probably won't have any other rats and mice around. So if you don't have those, more snakes won't come in. So you could have Chuck, and that's it. So these guys are really, really good. A lot of people see black rat snakes around their house too, and those have been known to eat other snakes. Plus, they're big rodent eaters as well. So if you have non-venomous snakes around your house, you want to leave them because they fill a niche and they're really harmless and they're not trying to hurt you. They don't want to bother you. They just want to be left alone and do their thing. So the message we're trying to get across to everybody, if it's cute or if you're nervous about it, either way, if it's in the wild, you want to leave it in the wild. They're much happier off there. They are part of the natural system. So they belong kind of where they're supposed to be in the wild. Enjoy them from afar. They're not going to hurt you as long, and you could not hurt them or,
take them from their homes.
Take them from their homes. All right, so a lot of this episode we've been talking about wildlife and pets and this and that, and we're gonna kind of do like a half and half with this little girl. So a lot of people, especially during the warmer months, they go to the beaches and all vacations and whatnot. And have you ever seen when people go like towards some of the beaches and coasts, they have like baby turtles for sale and hermit crabs and betas?
Oh yeah.
And I know being inside the state, I see a lot of people come back and like, oh, I got a new pet one. Yeah, is that a good idea?
Oh no, well, it can be fun if you know what you're getting into, but hermit crabs are a little complicated. You bring them home and you don't even know they need a new shell. Nobody told you, and then they go dormant for a little while, and then you think they're not with you anymore. And
it's a little hard on them.
You might not know how exactly to take care of them. They're super cute at the store, and they're little and they're fun, and
yeah. And what we get a big problem in this state is the baby turtles. Because baby turtles are super cute, but a lot of times they send them home with like the little plastic tank and this and that and say, oh, it won't outgrow this. That's a lie, by the way. They will definitely outgrow that little plastic tank and then they'll start stunting unless you give them a lot of room. One of the most common species of turtles are either red-eared sliders like this girl or yellow-bellied sliders. They're same family. It's a little bit different coloration. Now here's the fun thing. The cute little turtle you buy at about that big, if it's a female, it will get about dinner plate size and double hands to hold on to. Males are a little smaller, but still they're gonna need a very large area to live, either a huge tank, a horse trough, kind of a pond, or actual pond in your yard. They need the right lighting, big filter, because they're dirty turtles. So they're a huge undertaking to raise it from a baby to an adult. And most people don't want to do that or can't do that. And I've known a number of people. This one was a beach turtle who, as she was growing, people didn't realize exactly what she'd need, and they were like, yeah, no. Here you go.
They do need a lot of care.
They do, and here's the problem. While we do have native turtles out in the lake, most of the ones at the beach, like this red-eared slider, these are not native to North Carolina. But you know what a lot of people do if they don't want the turtle and nobody will take it?
Just take it out to the pond or the lake and let it go.
Right, exactly. And here's the thing, a lot of animals, a lot of exotic pets that are dropped in the wild will not survive. Here's the weird thing, red-eared sliders will survive. They're pretty adaptable, but it's a bad idea because this is not their native area. They're actually hybridizing with some of the native species, or they're really aggressive feeders, so they're pushing out the yellow bellies and whatnot else and causing big problems. So we're losing our native species because now the red-eared sliders have become an invasive problem. So you really want to think about when you're down at the beach. It's, once again, like we talked about earlier, impulse buying that cute little animal. It's going to be a lot of work, a lot of money, and later on, if you decide that you don't want this animal, very few places can take sliders because everybody's kind of glutted with them because so many people get them and then don't want them. There's not a lot of places that can adopt all these turtles, and you don't want to let them go in the wild because they are going to mess up the native ecosystem and really negatively impact our native species. So just something to think about, everybody. If you find something on vacation that's cute and cuddly and adorable, make sure it's a stuffed animal, and you, by all means, get as many of those as you want, but try and avoid getting the live stuff.
Absolutely.
So just wanted to talk about her for a minute. She's really cool, and just something to think about, everybody. So everybody, thanks so much for coming with us on another fun adventure. I think we learned a lot about possible injured wildlife, what to do in those situations, and maybe some pets we might want to think 3 times about before getting.
Yeah, we did learn a lot.
We did. I think we learned a lot, but we had some fun doing it, so that makes it okay, right?
That does.
Okay, great. So thanks so much for coming out. I'm Mikey.
I'm Crystal.
And until the next EcoVenture GSO, we'll see you later.
Bye.